Hey guys, just before we get into this episode of Grassroots Racer, for anyone who missed out on my exciting news last week, I'm very happy to announce that 𝘱𝘳𝘠 Suspension and Brakes 𝘵𝑁digo are jumping on board this year. Take your vehicle to the next level in performance with suspension, brakes, shock absorbers, springs, power steering, towing, and more from 𝘱𝘱𝘠 Suspension and Brakes. They are experts to look after your car, so if you're in the 𝘵𝑗ndigo area, head down to 13 Phillips Drive, Kangaroo Flat, and tell them Ed sent you. Enjoy this episode of Grassroots Racer. Back to another episode of Grassroots Racer. It's been great catching up with so many different people and drivers involved in motorsports. And tonight's guest is a TCR category driver. So it's a big welcome to Luke King. How are you tonight, Luke?
You can call me Kingy if you want, mate. I felt like you were going to go down that path. I'm good. Thanks for having me on Grassroots Racer. It's a really cool show that you're doing, and well done for putting together such a good package.
Thanks, Luke. And now let's quickly mention that you're not quite a grassroots racer, but we enjoy having all sorts of people involved in motorsports on.
Yep.
So let's just quickly talk about how you got into motorsport.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose I would say I'm a grassroots racer in the sense that the way we go about doing our racing is very much traditional in terms of sponsorships and that type of thing. Like, I wouldn't be here without our sponsors. So Dad kind of brought me up with that at a young age, and I started racing karts at about the age of 12. So I actually started karting in an Arrow AX6, which was a senior chassis when it really probably should have been a junior chassis, but we bought that kart so I could grow into it. We didn't really have a lot of money when I was growing up, but I was very fortunate in the fact that my father was quite an accomplished engine builder in the industry and worked in supercars and touring cars and all that sort of thing, even NASCAR as well. So yeah, we had all the know-how there. It was just a matter of bringing the dollars in. So yeah, started in karting and moved my way through.
Yeah, when you were messaging me before, you told me about your father's great story. So would you like to share with everyone a bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So Dad started working for a bloke named 𝘵𝘱𝘠𝘬𝘦, who ran a workshop in Sydney that was basically building all of the factory Ford engines at the time. So Moffat dealer team, and who else were there? I mean, I'm having a mind blank now, but all the big guys back in the 70s. So which was a huge era for motorsport here in Australia. Obviously, it was the part of the Brocky and Dick Johnson beginning eras. So yeah, Dad's been involved for a long time. He helped build John Goss's Formula 5000 and sort of just moved up through the ranks of race teams. Had quite a big accident and rode off a GTHO Phase 3 Falcon that he owned when he was pretty young. So he could never really do racing himself because some of the injuries he sustained sort of wouldn't allow him to get his race license. So yeah, he worked in NASCAR in the late 80s, just before I was born, which is pretty cool story, working for the factory Ford team back then. So yeah, I've been extremely lucky to meet some very good racing drivers over the years and be involved with them, going out to dinner and just being a part of or around while they've got things going on as well. So that was a key part for me.
That sounds extremely exciting. Now, you did tell me that you started karting when you were about 12. So
yep.
Was it really competitive? And did you do anything like the Australian Kart Championship? And did you win any titles?
No, is the short answer to that. I did in my very first race at Newcastle Kart Club at 𝘕𝘠𝘬𝘬𝘦. I was on my P plates or L plates, whatever they called them back then, and I actually finished on the podium because I'd been watching racing for so long that I actually knew what the rule book was, and there was a red flag, and I think I went out around and lined up on the grid. Oh no, sorry, yeah, I came into pit lane and waited in pit lane, and I was the only kart to do it. So everyone else got penalised, and I went on to win my first race. So it pays to make sure you know the rule book. But yeah, as I said, we didn't have a lot of money back in those days. So we raced our club championship, and I used to get podiums and that sort of thing there, which was great. And we had some wins while I was growing up. We did race the New South Wales State Championships back in maybe 2005 or 6 when it actually came to Newcastle. But we did most of our racing there at 𝘕𝘠𝘬𝘬𝘦, which most people in karting know is a pretty cool track. So yeah, I was lucky to have experience there.
I'm pretty similar. Like, I haven't won any of the plates, the number plates that you get, but I was lucky I won my first race, except I had no one in it to compete against me. So
you just scared all the competition off, didn't you?
Yeah, just no one wanted to race, so I was the only one.
They saw you at the practice day on the Thursday before it, and they were like, "No, I'm not turning up while Etton's there."
Yeah, like I didn't even, like, I was lucky if I knew what the checkered flag was, to be honest.
A win's a win.
Luckily though, I was able to race because I did know the flags, so that was a lucky. But you moved to Formula Ford, so what do you remember most about it?
About my time in Formula Ford.
Yeah.
I think Formula Ford is a big missing piece of the puzzle in motorsport here in Australia today now, considering the way that CAMs have gone about changing their junior categories. If you look at the supercar grid 2 or 3 years ago, every single person on that grid had either won a state championship or competed at a very high level in Formula Ford. And what those cars teach you is how to get your technique absolutely spot on, because when you're not driving them perfectly and consistently, you're off the pace. So for me, going to Formula Ford was a very expensive exercise, and I was working at a power station at the time as a fitter machinist, which I did my apprenticeship in. So I was spending all my overtime money on the Formula Ford season. We had a few sponsors, and I was also working doing driver training. And I said to myself that if I can't be competitive in Formula Ford, then I shouldn't do this anymore, because it's costing me literally thousands of dollars to go racing out of my own pocket, right? So everyone around me at my work was buying houses when they were in their mid to early 20s, and I was there driving race cars. So we ended up, in the last year we raced Formula Ford, we had a top finish of 4th at Sydney Motorsport Park, which was a national round against guys like Sonic. Cam Hill was running in that year, so it was quite a competitive year. And at Wakefield Park, we were, I think we qualified up in the top 6 there and had some cool battles. So yeah, I mean, for us, it might not sound like a lot to people who don't know the sport, but, you know, picture a Falcon station wagon with a rusty car trailer rocking up next to Sonic Motorsport, which is a multi-car transporter with Formula Fords coming out of it. Kids spending a couple $100,000 a year on racing, and we went there and out-qualified them. So that to me was where I was like, okay, I'm going to press on with this, because if I can get the sponsors, I should be able to do well.
You make a good point there, because you've got someone like you, for an example, was probably like in George Russell's position and punching in the top 5. Like, it's not really, it is possible, but it's not really like normal, because, like, considering Williams don't have the funds, in this case, it's you. But what do you believe, like, karting teaches you racecraft, so what do you believe Formula Ford really taught you?
Formula Ford really taught me driving technique and what you need to have from a car and how to set up a car to move forward from there. So like by the end of like my final year, we would be coming into the pit lane on a test day, which was rare for us. But we would come in, my mechanic and engineer Glenn would do half a turn of preload on the front spring and send me back out. And I could tell him by the time I got to turn 2, whether or not that was the right direction that we wanted to go in, because I was so in sync with how the car felt. And I knew that I needed, say, more turn in at Eastern Creek to really get the front end around turn 2 and have that nice rotation, which is one of the hardest corners on the track. And in Australia, probably, it's quite a difficult corner to get right. So, you know, it taught me how to feel things in a car and how to ask for things from a car, which I think people who spend too long in go-karting really struggle to make that step and to understand it, because they're so used to feeling what a go-kart is that, it makes it hard for them to move on.
Do you believe maybe that, because did you do many tests that maybe helped you a bit, or was it just the experience in Formula Ford, like doing races constantly?
We probably prioritised testing over racing, which is why we only did a couple of rounds of the national series. I remember saying to Dad and Glenn at the time that, like, I wouldn't do the whole national championship. We would just go and test, and then do one round and make sure that round had a big impact. So, that was the way that we approached it. And I think having seat time, having your bum in the seat, is the most important thing.
And like you said to me before the show, you watched the interview with 𝘱𝘕𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝑀 if you're gonna go out there, you gotta perform and you gotta make sure you're at the top. So when did you know you were ready for Toyota 86?
Well, I think it came down to a budget thing again. We, at the end of 2015, when Formula Ford was kind of going through its hard patch and finishing up, I was like, okay, you know, if I had $200,000, I probably could have finished, you know, top 1 or 2 in Australian Formula Ford series. So, and I've learned what I needed to learn. And I've had a lot of good people around me helping to learn the cars, which is the most important thing, right? So then it was kind of like, okay, well, I reckon I've got it and I know that I can keep going, but now we need people to know our name, because unfortunately, no one watches the national series that often, of Formula Ford, and certainly no one's out there watching the state series apart from the commentary team who are actually at the track that day. So Toyota 86 fills the gap where you need profile, and that was where it kind of, for us, it was the right decision to go to 86. And I think, again, because of the budget side of it, a one-make series where all the cars are virtually meant to be the same, which is questionable sometimes, is where you need to be at. And if you can perform in a one-make series, people will start to take you seriously, which is, where we sort of got to.
So how competitive do you think Toyota 86 was?
I think that the 86 series is probably one of the most competitive support categories in the world. Like, it is seriously competitive. And I've seen other support categories out there. Obviously, we know Carrera Cup's extremely competitive in all continents. Renault Clio Cup is super competitive over in the UK and some of the European circuits. The 86 series here, I think there's probably, you know, in any one of those races back in 2018 or 2019, there's probably 10 blokes on the grid who could have won it. I mean, we were getting down to qualifying margins at Newcastle. I think Timmy Brook picked me for pole on the final lap by 0.001 of a second. And you're just like, how is that possible in an 86, you know, like to be all that close together? But Yeah, I mean, we were looking for 1 to 2 horsepower to try and help us and that was making the difference. So when you're looking for those tiny margins, it's very competitive.
Percent right. Like, it's just when it's that close and you miss out on pole. I know the feeling. When you miss out on pole by just a smidgen, like you think it's like small, you can touch with your fingers. It's like it's some of the worst feelings ever. But what are your favorite tracks that you've raced in Australia?
In Australia, I definitely I love the street circuits. So Homebush, Townsville, the Newcastle Street Circuit, all really cool. I haven't got to do Surfers yet. I'd love to do the Gold Coast, and I think we might get that opportunity in TCR in the future. So but they're probably some of my favorites. Bathurst is Bathurst. Bathurst is in a whole completely different category. So but definitely the street circuits are cool. We seem to do really well at Sandown whenever we go there. So that was where we took our first win in the 86 series in the first year. So we've always, I don't know what it is about Sandown, but I've always just seemed to do really well there over the big curves. So I'm kind of a bit disappointed we're not going there with TCR this year.
It's disappointing that no one will probably be going there soon because of the housing developments.
Yeah.
When I said what's your favourite tracks in Australia, you questioned Australia. So have you raced overseas?
Yeah, so we did a street race over in China in a place called Tianjin, which was a last minute call up that we got. And I've also driven at a couple of tracks over in the UK as well. So the Tianjin street circuit was quite interesting. That was in an LMP3 car. Don't know if you're familiar with them. So that was a 𝘕𝘠𝘬𝘦 chassis with a Nissan V8 in the back of it.
Yep.
Full carbon fiber, monocoque and everything, and a lot of aero. So that was middle of 2019, just after Townsville. I was going into Sydney and to meet with a sponsor, and I got a message on my phone from a friend who I used to work for, and he was like, "Mate, there's a seat. You just need to get here. Can you do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. When is it?" And he's like, "This weekend." I'm like, "You want me to fly to Beijing this weekend at the drop of a hat?" And he's like, "Yeah, it'll be fine. Just sort it out." And I was like, "Okay." So I spent the next 2 days hustling to get some money together for flights, and me, Liz, Dad all flew off together, and we had our first international podium over in Beijing.
Podium too. That's brilliant. But
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Let's just quickly talk about your fundraising, just quickly, because
Sure.
it's a very good cause to raise money for the kids, for the Starlight Foundation. Is that it? How did that come about, and how's it going?
It's going well. We've been doing 11 a.m. updates every day to kind of try and take over Gladys's number updates that she does for COVID, just as a bit of a laugh. So we're up to $1,637 at the moment. Had over 25 people donate, which has been great. And I'm riding 1,000 Ks for the month of September. So that's what it's all about. That's why it's called the Tour de Kids. So September, you kind of nominate how many Ks you're going to ride. And I was actually zonked out on the couch for a couple of hours before because I rode about 80 Ks this morning and was buggered. So I've got about another 500 to go before the end of the month. So going to be on a tight schedule to make sure we crank that out.
Like, that's really good. Like, I've done donations. Well, not donations. I did a fundraising for MND and breast cancer, but that's just brilliant. That's awesome. It's really good, Luke. Like, it's good to see people like you and myself, who go out there and we try to help, do our best. Yeah. So, how can people find it though if they want to donate and put towards the cause?
Yeah, so if they want to donate and they're looking on my Instagram profile, you can just find it in my link in bio, or you can go 𝘕𝑗kids.org.au/Luke-King. So yeah, and there's like a full fundraising page there. It's very easy for people to log on and make a donation if they want to. So we just thought, we're in lockdown, we can't do much work at the moment because of the nature of what I do and what Liz does. We can't really go anywhere or do any events. So yeah, we just thought we'd do something nice for the kids, and hopefully I can get down to the Sydney Children's Hospital and say hello to some of them once we get out of lockdown. I might even take my sim down there.
That's brilliant, Luke. Last but not least, do you have any sponsors or anyone in particular you'd like to thank?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've got 𝘕𝘂𝘓 here, who are our major partner for TCR this year. Fast Track Communications, who have been a sponsor of ours this is their 5th year with us. Melbourne Performance Centre, who have been great to us this year. Great Divide Tours, which is my uncle's business. He was the one that bought me my first go-kart and has been sponsoring me on and off ever since. He's known as Outback Vic, if you want to go and look him up. ASV Euro Car Parts, who were one of Australia's biggest Euro car parts distributors. And yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah, to everyone who supports us, thank you very much.
That's great, Luke. Thanks so much for speaking to me tonight. I hope you've raised a lot of money for the Starlight Foundation, and we'll put all the details in the write-up so people know how to support such a great cause.
I really appreciate that. It's gonna help us a lot to hopefully get to our fundraising target. So yeah, anyone who wants to donate, please give generously.
Thanks everyone for supporting Grassroots Racer and watching tonight. And good luck to everyone who's out on the track this weekend, if so. And remember, drive fast and take chances. Thanks so much, Luke. That was great.